Newsroom. I'm your host, Khalid. But today is Monday, the 14th of November 2022, and these are the stories that we will be discussing in detail during the course of our show. We will begin, ladies and gentlemen, with the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, the flagship project between the Islamic Republic of Pakistan and the People's Republic of China. How important is it for regional growth, regional prosperity, and of course the improvement as far as the geo-economic relationship between countries and the situation of the whole region is concerned. This is going to be our first segment. The recent visit of our Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif Sahab, also his maiden visit to China, now that Xi Jinping had again become the leader of the People's Republic of China. How important was it for Pakistan to be one of the first countries to have been invited post the 20th CPC? This is what we are going to discuss, the importance of China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. Also, the Chinese Consul General in Lahore, Zhao Shiren, who has said that 4 corridors are now being added to the flagship China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. So that increases the number of corridors, and that also increases the possibilities of further cooperation, collaboration in the economic field between the two countries. Also, we will be talking about the ML1, the $10 billion ML1 railway track that is going to be also announced by next month. Our second segment concerns the unfortunate incident that has happened in Istanbul. Deputy Foreign Minister for Asia Pacific and African Affairs and of course Pakistan has condemned this blast in Istanbul, whether it be our Prime Minister, whether it be our President, whether it be our Foreign Office spokesperson, or whether it be our Foreign Minister, all have condemned the dastardly blasts that has happened in Istiklal Street, a popular shopping destination for locals and tourists, on Sunday afternoon, wounded dozens and also killed a number of people. This is going to be our second segment, the security situation in Turkey. Our third segment pertains to the United States, that has urged the the Narendra Modi-led Indian government to restore the local elections there, and also the political rights in all the regions across the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir region. This is an important statement in the whole context of the UPR report that has recently been made, and of course the atrocities, the continuous spate of atrocities and barbarities that have been perpetrated by the Indian authorities and the Indian armed forces against the people in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir region. This is going to be our third story, and of course this is a statement that has been made by Assistant Secretary of State for South and Central Affairs, Donald Lu. And our final story, ladies and gentlemen, concerns the World Diabetes Day that is being observed today across the world, including in Pakistan. Diabetes, as we know, or in layman terms, sugar, is a disease that has crippled many people. I mean, it's not a devastating disease, but nevertheless it needs to be controlled as and when you know that you are suffering from it, and a lot of people suffer from it in Pakistan and across the world. This year's theme of the World Diabetes Day is access to diabetes education. We need to educate people on what diabetes is, not to be afraid of it, and take the necessary precautions and the medicines, of course. This is going to be our last story. Let's begin with our first segment, and that concerns the flagship project between Pakistan and China, that is the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. 4 new corridors are being added to this flagship project. It's a very important milestone project between the two countries, and of course the recent visit of Shehbaz Sharif Sahab to China has only further solidified the different projects under the Cpec and the movement towards the second phase of this project. More in the following report.
China-Pakistan relations have enjoyed a strong historical foundation and have withstood the vicissitudes of international upheavals of domestic changes. Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif embarked on his first official visit to China since taking office in April, and he was among the first foreign leaders to visit China after 20th National Congress of Communist Party of China. During the visit, leaders of two countries had an in-depth exchange of views on bilateral relations and moving forward more effectively with construction of China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, as well as accelerating the construction of infrastructure for Gwadar Seaport. Chinese Consul General in Lahore, Zhao Shiren, has said 4 corridors are being added to flagship Cpec, as he termed Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif's maiden visit unprecedentedly constructive and successful, whereby both sides agreed to add 4 new corridors: digital, Industrial, Green and Health Cpec project. As a flagship project of Belt and Road Initiative, the Cpec has become a landmark in China-Pakistan cooperation, which has strongly contributed to Pakistan's economic development and the improvement of livelihoods. Cpec's next phase of high-quality development will encompass key areas such as industry, energy, agriculture, ICT, rail and road network, and developing Gawada Port as a hub of trade and transshipment, investment and regional connectivity.
Professor Zamir Ahmed Awan, who is an analyst, joins us online, in fact in the studios, not online. Professor Saab, thank you very much to have joined us. Professor Saab, you understand Pak-China relations and the China-Pakistan economic corridor much more than a lot of us, including myself. How do you see the momentum of different policies and the way now Cpec is progressing post the visit of our Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif Saab to China, and also the 20th CPC? I'm sure that one of the things that was discussed during the 20th CPC must also have been the China-Pakistan economic corridor.
First of all, let me say something about the Prime Minister's visit to China. It was really very important meeting and very crucial for Pakistan. In fact, Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif have been to China many times as a Chief Minister of Punjab, and he know many leaders of Chinese and have sometimes personal relationship with them. But being a Prime Minister, this was his first visit, and it was really very important. And also, due to the 20th National Congress, China was busy and over-engaged with the preparation of the 20th National Congress. And Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has visited. He was the first foreign dignitary to visit China after the 20th National Congress. So these two are the very important things. And
it highlights the
importance
scope of relationship and the strength of the relationship between the two countries.
That's true. And during his visit, he met the leadership of China, President Xi Jinping, his counterpart, and other leadership. And they discussed all matters of concern. Definitely, he has addressed the Chinese concerns also. And now I believe both countries are on the same page, and new agreements and new approach has been adopted to speed up, accelerate the Cpec. After his visit, post-visit, the Cpec is accelerated and it has widened the scope also.
All right, Professor Awan, let's talk about the 4 new corridors that have been announced by the Consul General of China in Lahore, Mr. Zhao Shiren, who talks about these 4 corridors that are digital, industrial, green and health to the Cpec project. How will they contribute further to the strengthening of the China-Pakistan economic corridor?
First of all, let me explain. The framework of Cpec is a very open-ended agreement. We can add any new project with mutual consent.
All right.
So there is a possibility of adding any new dimension or widening the scope of the Cpec. It is always possible with the mutual consent. And definitely the economic corridor is the major, but of course information, education, environment and other corridors need to be explored simultaneously. And China is the closest friend of Pakistan and wanted to help in all dimensions, in all respects. Whatever we believe is in our interest, we always approach to the Chinese authorities, and most of the time they agree.
All right. Now, we understand that the Pakistan-China economic corridor is going to further boost Pakistan's economic situation and also strengthen the economic relationship between Pakistan and China, and that is, of course, very evident by the increase in the number of corridors as well. Now, when you see other international organizations like the IMF portraying a very gloomy outlook of the global economy in the future, do you feel Pakistan and China together can counter this gloomy environment that has been portrayed by the IMF?
Unfortunately, there are anti-China sentiments in the West, and they are projecting everything negatively, while Pakistan is the recipient or the beneficiary of Cpec. At least we should be very clear in mind that the Cpec is a positive project and helping Pakistan really. In fact, if we look at the past, the Western countries has helped Pakistan, but their help was in certain areas, For example, they have given some aid for women rights, for child abuse, for drug control, for these things, the social things.
All right.
But the Chinese has helped Pakistan how to catch a fish. The Cpec projects are of utility of the common man of the Pakistan. Power projects under Cpec has produced electricity. A common man is the beneficiary of this electricity. Cpec has constructed many motorways and highways, and common man in Pakistan is traveling on these roads.
True.
And of course, these have the economic worth. They are revenue generating projects. They are have accelerated the economic activities in Pakistan. So these are very, very different from the Western assisted projects in Pakistan in the past.
True. Also, Professor Awan, I'd like to understand, you talked about the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor being an open and inclusive platform, and you said that all third parties were welcome to it as well. I have seen and read statements, I've talked to different ambassadors in the past as well. I talked to the German ambassador who said that his country was interested. There are other countries that are interested to invest in the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. Indonesia has of late expressed interest to invest in the special economic zones. That was of course given in the statement by the Indonesian Deputy Foreign Minister for Asia Pacific and African Affairs, Abdullah Jilani. Do you feel that more and more countries are slowly and steadily evincing interest in Cpec, and that we will be seeing more countries joining the foray?
Initially, Cpec was a bilateral agreement between Pakistan and China only. But in fact, the Chinese approach of Belt and Road Initiative is a multilateralism, is a globalization. So they have engaged around 150 countries around the world. So they are investing and have a bilateral agreement with each of them. The recent trend that the Belt and Road family, I mean the other countries who are the participant of the Belt and Road, they are also interacting with each other. It is actually globalization. It is actually multilateralism. Cpec, initially it was bilateral between China and Pakistan, but the true potential of this project will be utilized if we expand it with the neighboring countries. For example, there is a plan to extend it to Afghanistan. Iran is a major destination of Chinese investment.
It has already had talks with China on this.
Yes. China is investing heavily in Iran. So Cpec is also facilitating Iran, Central Asia, Euro-Asia. This is our strength. And the actual potential of Cpec will be utilized if we interconnect all these regional countries.
All right, Professor Awan, there is always a supply and a demand. The free trade agreement between Pakistan and China was signed way back in 2006. Since then, the mutual trade between the two countries has only strengthened, has only increased. How, in your point of view, can Pakistan further increase its exports? Because this is what we want as a country, to be more export oriented. Do you feel that our exporters need to be more oriented towards the Chinese concerns, the Chinese needs, as far as their supply chains are concerned?
In fact, China is the global manufacturing factory and exporting heavily. But at the same time, China is the biggest import market too. For Pakistani products, there is huge demand. The problem is that we don't understand Chinese systems. We are more prone to the Western countries and their systems. So we have little awareness about the Chinese system. How to export to China, we need to understand. We need to understand their legislation, their requirement, their standards. In fact, we at the first hand, we have to educate our exporter. Secondly, we have to develop the capacity to meet the Chinese requirement, the standards. China is helping Pakistan, and China has taken some actual measures to promote the export of Pakistani product to Chinese market. And recently, last year and this year, Pakistani export to China has increased. I don't know exact figure, but it is obvious increase, is a visible increase. And Chinese are helping Pakistani exporters to train them. Capacity building. Capacity building is more important. Our government should also focus on the capacity building of our exporters, of manufacturers.
As per the needs of the Chinese market.
Yes, yes.
I think that is very important. Also there's another model that we need to emulate as far as China is concerned, and that is poverty alleviation. Now China has taken out 800 million of its people from poverty, and look at where China is right now, if we see, one of the greatest powers in the world. Now during the Prime Minister's visit also, the Chinese did express the willingness to extend relevant practical cooperation to contribute to poverty alleviation in Pakistan. Do you feel Pakistan can benefit from the Chinese model?
I am the eyewitness of the reform. I studied in China in 1980s.
All right.
And I have seen the China of 1980s when there was shortage of food, there was no availability of the common products of the daily use, and it was infrastructure was poor, transport was poor, housing was very poor. But I have seen how the China has introduced reforms and adopted the new measures and new policies to improve their economy. Within the years, we have seen everything was in abundance and the people were happy and people have the money. And today, the China is one of the richest people in China and their purchasing power is highest in the world. So I have seen, I have the comparison between 1980 and today's China is really is amazing, is a miracle.
Is an example that Pakistan could emulate.
Definitely, definitely. And Chinese leadership is very sincere with Pakistan. They want to share their experience, they want to help Pakistan, but actually the hard work we have to do.
That is
our
true.
responsibility.
That is true. I totally agree with you on that, and I'm sure that the current government wants to do its utmost to further stabilize that and also cater to the Chinese needs so that we can export more towards our brotherly and friendly country. Also, a day after the Prime Minister's visit to China, there was a very important agreement that I did talk in one of my previous shows, but I'd like to understand your point of view as well. The Memorandum of Cooperation on the Yuan clearing in Pakistan. How can that help both countries, especially Pakistan?
I have experienced these problems. When I was a diplomat in China, I was responsible for Pakistani students studying in China. Their subsidy from the government of Pakistan, we were transferring to them. But all the dollars transactions were coming through the New York. And sometimes there were objections and queries, and it was always delayed. So if we bypass the dollar and we have the agreement mutual between China and Pakistan, all the transaction in the local currencies, either rupees with the yuan, it will speed up many things.
All right.
It is a major hurdle in promoting trade and transaction between China and Pakistan. So it is very good option for us to speed up trade and promote transaction conveniently. So I think that yuan rupees agreement is vital for promoting Pakistan-China trade and bilateral relations.
And it's also going to simplify trade, I think, between the two countries.
Yes.
What about the bidding for the ML1 that is going to happen next month, I presume? And do you feel that it's going to also pave the way for stronger collaboration or for strengthening Pakistan's railway line?
I have seen in China, I witnessed it, that all over the world, how much is the railway network compiled together, still China is ahead of the rest of the whole world. China is the leader in the high-speed railway. They have surpassed any other country in the West, and they have built a network of the railway in China. They have experience, they have the technology, they have the money. With this background, ML1, I am very much optimistic the Chinese will do within prescribed time, within prescribed budget, and it will be high quality project. ML1 is vital for Pakistan. It will not only reduce the distance between cities to city within Pakistan and shorten the travel time, but also it will promote the regional connectivity. ML1 is very important for Pakistan.
Right. Now, Professor Awan, also, there were a lot of questions or concerns from the Chinese side as far as the safety of the Chinese personnel in Pakistan is concerned. That was also, a point that was taken up during the visit of Shehbaz Sharif Saab to China, and he said that he would personally ensure the safety of the Chinese personnel in Pakistan. How important is it for us as Pakistanis to also, be sure that our Chinese brethren are safe, sound, and under an environment, working in an environment that is conducive to them?
Safety is very important factor, but unfortunately, all over the world, exceptional cases are happening. Yesterday, what happened in Istanbul? Blasts are happening, terrorism is happening all around the world. in America, in Europe, in China, in Pakistan, in Afghanistan, in Yemen, all over the world, there are exceptional cases. However, Pakistan is committed to protect the Chinese national and their asset in Pakistan. Pakistani government has taken practical measures. We have raised a division of Pakistan Army to protect the Cpec, Cpec force.
All right.
And we have protected the Chinese on many occasions, but exceptional cases are always there.
True.
How many attempts has been made on Chinese, and Pakistani law enforcement agencies and armed forces of Pakistan, or the Cpec security forces of Pakistan has protected them and failed such attempts. But exceptional cases are always there. Few times they have succeeded, and some Chinese people has lost their life. We are very sorry for the loss of life of Chinese brothers.
That is true.
But we try our best. How many Pakistani security forces has martyred,
have laid
offered
down their
their
lives, of
own,
course.
sacrificed their own life to protect the Chinese nationals. Of course, this is appreciable, and the Chinese friends understand this.
I'm sure that they understand Pakistan and the way Pakistan is also moving towards the security of the Chinese personnel. Finally, how optimistic, Professor Saab, are you as far as the second phase of Cpec and of course the visit of our Prime Minister, a whole scenario that is building as far as the strengthening of relations between the two countries is concerned?
Let me say the first phase of Cpec, or the early harvest project, was the basically power sector infrastructure, which has a little visibility in the public. But the second phase is agriculture, industrialization, social sector. These are the projects which will have a lot of new jobs creation, that will have more economic activities, rapidly economic activities. The trickle down impact will be very, very visible in the days to come. So the people of Pakistan will be the beneficiary of the second phase of Cpec.
Inshallah ta'ala.
Inshallah.
And our hopes and our prayers are with the Pakistani government and also with our Chinese brothers in order to further stabilize this relationship that exists between the two countries. And we hope to see brighter days and brighter months and years ahead, and
Ameen.
a more stable economically Pakistan in the future as well. Thank you very
Ameen.
much, Professor Zamir Ahmed Awan, Analyst, to have joined us, to have talked to us about this beautiful relationship that exists between Pakistan and China and how it is moving forward at a rapid pace because of the visit of Shehbaz Sharif and also because of the strengthening of various projects under the Cpec between the two brotherly countries. Let's come to our second story, ladies and gentlemen, and that concerns a very untoward incident, a very unfortunate incident that has happened yesterday in Turkey, in Istiklal Street. There was an explosion, as a result of which many lost their lives and scores were injured. The condemnation has come from across the board in Pakistan, from our President to our Prime Minister to our Foreign Minister to our spokesperson of Foreign Affairs. Pakistan condemns us wholeheartedly. More in the following report.
6 people were killed and 53 others were wounded when an explosion rocked a busy pedestrian street in central Istanbul. President Tayyip Erdogan condemned the vile attack and stated that relevant units of state are working to find the perpetrators. World leaders extended their condolences and expressed their regret at the incident. NATO's Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg has called the explosion shocking. Pakistan has strongly condemned the heinous terror attack in Turkey's Istanbul city, which resulted in loss of precious lives. In a statement, Foreign Office spokesman said Pakistan firmly stands with brotherly people of Turkey in the fight against the scourge of terrorism. Meanwhile, President Dr. Arif Alvi, Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif and Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto Zardari have also expressed deep grief over the loss of precious lives in the Istanbul explosion. Government and the people of Pakistan expressed deepest condolences to brotherly people of Turkey at the loss of precious lives and send prayers for speedy recovery of the injured. Between 2015 and 17, Turkey was hit by a string of deadly bombings by ISIS and outlawed Kurdish groups. The attempt to take over Turkey and the Turkish nation through terrorism will not reach its goal today or tomorrow.
Now, of course, the condemnation from Pakistan has come from across the board. In just some of the statements I'd like to cite, a Foreign Office spokesperson has said Pakistan firmly stands with the brotherly people of Turkey in the fight against the scourge of terrorism. Of course, it's Turkey and no longer Turkey. The spokesperson said, "We are convinced that the resolute Turkish people will foil any attempts to undermine peace and stability of their country. President Dr. Arif Alvi, Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif Saab and Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto Zardari Saab have also expressed deep grief over the loss of precious lives in the Istanbul explosion. In their separate statements, they have of course conveyed their condolences to the brotherly people of Turkey on part of the government and the people of Pakistan. They also have prayed for the speedy recovery of those injured in the explosion. Hasan Abdullah, correspondent TRT World, joins us online. Hasan, thank you very much to have joined us. Hasan, what an unfortunate incident that has rocked Turkey yesterday. What are the latest details surrounding it?
Well, at the moment, investigations are continuing, and the Interior Ministry is saying that around 21 people have been detained so far, including the primary suspect. They're saying that the primary suspect had traveled from Syria. They're saying that she has connections with the YPG, which is the Syrian branch of the PKK terrorist organization. And they are saying that at this point in time, as investigations continue, it's becoming increasingly clear about the degree of collaboration that exists. And I think a very significant point at this time is that in Ankara, there's a lot of anger towards the American policy of supporting the YPG in Syria. And we've heard from the Turkish Interior Minister, Süleyman Soylu. He said that the American condemnation and sympathies are meaningless when they're providing support to a terrorist organization.
All right. Hasan, speaking of the PKK, it is asking for a separate independent Kurdish state within Turkey. How has Turkey been tackling the PKK since the last few years?
Well, this organization has been at war, not just against Turkey, but you find that there are groups, for example, in Iran. Also, this organization is operating out of Syria, out of Iraq. So they're trying to carve out a territory, not just from Turkey, but from various other countries as well. So they're trying to go beyond the current boundaries of the Republic of Turkey. As far as Turkey is concerned, there have been different efforts. So, for example, we've seen the ongoing military campaigns, not just within the Turkish borders, but across the border in Iraq, in Syria, where Turkey has been targeting the PKK. Also, there have been political initiatives. So, for example, in the past, President Erdogan's AK Party has taken the initiative to basically talk to some of the political actors who are close to the PKK. There was a peace process that was ongoing. So efforts have been made at various levels.
All right, Hasan, if you look at the timeline of the recent years and the amount of heinous incidents that have happened within Turkey, starting from July 2015, where 30 people were killed, 100 wounded after an explosion in Surk on the border with Syria. Then in 2016, in October, car bomb attack on a military station kills at least 18 people in the Hakkari province of southeast Turkey. In 2019, July, at least 3 people are killed in a car bomb blast in the southern Turkish town of Rehanli, near the Syrian border. So a lot of Syrian border and its vicinity. And then, of course, in September 2019, 7 people are killed, 10 others wounded in southeast Turkey's province where an IED explodes. And of course, in November 2022, 6 people are killed, dozens other wounded on the 13th, where an explosion rocks a busy pedestrian street in central Istanbul. What are the measures now that are being taken by the government to thwart any such attempts?
Well, I think it would be fair to say that the most recent terrorist attack is not going to drastically alter the domestic policy. This is not something that's just started. For example, the Interior Ministry has said that this year alone, there were 200 attempts of terrorist attacks that were prevented. And this one incident, of course, happened. So there is a comprehensive counterterrorism policy in place. For example, we're witnessing the Turkish forces, they carry out intelligence-based operation across the border in Iraq, where there are PKK bases. Just yesterday, in fact, the Turkish Defense Ministry released a video showing the surrender of some suspected PKK members. So these operations are ongoing. At the moment, the Turkish government is talking about clearing the northwestern areas of Syria. So they've basically been talking to even the Assad regime. They've been talking to the Americans. They've been talking to the Russians. They've been saying that there is clear collaboration between the YPG in Syria and the PKK in Turkey, and that there needs to be action. And we've had very clear messages from President Erdogan, from other Turkish government officials. They've said that if the allies do not take the needed action, then there is the option of basically going unilaterally.
All right, Hasan, a lot of different actions, of course, will be taken, and those will be unearthed, whether in the days to come or in the months to come, because, of course, the counter strategy of Turkey is working. And nevertheless, you also said that, there are a number of incidents that have been thwarted. This one incident could not be, but this is something that we are seeing the world over, such incidents that happen. When you look at Istiklal Street and what happened on Sunday, there was another campaign of attacks that happened in 2015 and 2016 also that targeted Istanbul and other cities, including Ankara. They were blamed on the IS group and outlawed Kurdish militants. 500 people were killed way back then, and wounded. 2,000, around 2,000 were wounded. Why is there this period that has resurfaced after quite a restive bit of calm in Ankara?
I think there could be a number of reasons. One of the reasons is that elections are just around the corner. And, there is a history of these terrorist organizations trying to basically make the most out of timing. They try to influence the voter behavior. That's one of the factors. The other factor, I think, is that I do have reports that some of the parties that have been opposed to President Erdogan's AK Party, that have been in the opposition, they've actually approached the AK Party because their initial attempts to forge some sort of an alliance with the main opposition party, CHP, has not worked. So there's also a potential attempt by some of the more radical elements to sabotage any attempt of reconciliation or political alliance between the AK Party and parties like the HDP. That could be another reason. So, there are quite a few possible reasons that are there. Recently, we've had a video statement from one of the senior members of the PKK terrorist organization. He said that it should be clear that his organization is not just going to be targeting security installations and government buildings and so forth, but public places will also be targeted.
All right, but with this video that, of course, I'm sure shows a lot of concern to the people in Turkey. Do you feel that the government in Turkey is going to move ahead with quite stringent measures in order to, avoid any such attempts in the future?
I think if you look at the security policy in Turkey, generally it's it's not one of those very sort of in-your-face type security policies we see in some countries. So you don't really see the military or the police roaming around everywhere, especially in tourist places and so forth. There's a lot of intelligence-based operations that are carried out here. A lot of the times people find out that suspected terrorists were nabbed after they've actually been nabbed, and there is no sort of media circus before that. So I think the counterterrorism strategy has been very different. And if you go and look at the last 4 decades, you find that Turkey's counterterrorism policy has actually been evolving. I think the country has learned a lot from the past experience. We've seen different governments come in. They seem to have learned from the experiences of previous governments, from the failures of previous governments. So overall, if you were to look at this situation in a qualitative way, you look at the number of attempts that have been made, the number of people who have been nabbed, the number of incidents that have perhaps been thwarted. I think it's quite clear that overall the strategy probably has been quite successful.
All right. When you look at the strategy, do you feel that this counter-terror strategy of the current Turkish government might evolve or might change? Looking at the current situation, do you feel that they're going to go ahead with the same in the same vein as far as nabbing all those elements that are working against the Turkish interests? And how does that bode also with Turkey's relations with its neighbors?
Well, I'm actually looking at the foreign policy dimension of this more closely. I think Turkey is now going to push for its allies, especially the Americans, to really review their policy of supporting the YPG across the border in Syria. That's one. Secondly, for example, when you look at the prospective NATO membership of Sweden and Finland, as you very well know, that Turkey has made it very clear that it's going to look at the effort that has been made by Finland and Sweden before Turkey is going to agree to allow them to join the security alliance. And just yesterday,
you're talking of NATO. You're talking of NATO right here.
I'm talking about NATO. That's right. And just yesterday, more footage has emerged from Sweden, where supporters of PKK are basically holding a political rally, holding flags of the PKK terrorist organization. Remember, this organization is classed as a terrorist organization, not just by Turkey, but also by the European Union and the United States. So I think Turkey is probably going to be more assertive in its foreign policy. It's going to say that the allies need to review their policies. Americans need to stop supporting the YPG. There needs to be a dramatic shift in northeastern Syria. And if that doesn't happen, then Turkey does have the hard power capacity to go on its own in Syria, especially now that the dynamics have considerably changed for the Russians.
Coming back to Turkey and coming back to Istiklal Street and central Istanbul, what is the situation right now? Are people going around their normal livelihoods? Is life going on as usual, or have some changes been made?
No, I think it's fair to say that people are around, they're roaming on the streets, the markets are open. People are quite resilient. If you talk to people there, they've seen a lot more. Perhaps some of the tourists, who came to Turkey for the first time, or who witnessed such a terrorist attack for the first time, you can expect them to be naturally panicked, perhaps more concerned. But as far as the locals are concerned, they've seen much worse. They're aware of the threats these terrorist organizations have been making. They're also aware of, the action that has been taken, how, for example, the Turkish government, the Erdogan government, has basically eliminated some of the no-go areas these terrorist organizations had created in places like Diyarbakir. And there's a lot of economic development that's taking place in those areas. Erdogan has enjoyed tremendous support from these southeastern parts of Turkey. So, all these factors are there. And I think the Turkish public is quite used to this.
All right. Another aspect of it all is the political maneuvering and the election that you pointed out too, as far as the opposition and the current government is concerned. Incidents such as these, do they affect the politicking of the current government or the opposition in a positive or a negative light, in your point of view?
Well, I think the Turkish government can capitalize this to its advantage. Because it has been saying since the 2016 coup attempt that at least the main opposition party, the CHP, President Erdogan has made this statement publicly several times. He said that some prominent people within the CHP, including its leader, according to President Erdogan, they have been supporting terrorist organizations like PKK and FETÖ. So, this has been part of the public discourse here in Turkey. Now that this has happened,
we have kind of lost contact with Hasan Abdullah, correspondent TRT World. There has been a little technical fault. Of course, Hasan Abdullah was giving us details about the different dimensions of it all. Yes, Hasan, now that you're back, could you kindly rephrase what you were just saying?
Yeah, basically, I think President Erdogan is just going to now highlight that, what he's been saying for some time, that the opposition parties, especially the CHP and its leader, who he has repeatedly named, they need to take a stand. They need to oppose any sort of support, explicit or implicit, for organizations like PKK or FETÖ. So I think the government could use this to its advantage. The opposition might find itself changing its stance. So, for example, when it comes to Ankara's policy in Syria, we've been hearing from the leader of the main opposition party, CHP. He's been talking about rapprochement with Bashar al-Assad, whereas the government of Turkey has been opposed to that. It's been talking about security interests and so forth and so on. So I think perhaps the opposition is going to be on the back foot now, and they're going to possibly show more support for any unilateral action across the border in Syria.
All right, let's talk about support. The NATO countries or the Western allies of Turkey, how much support have they shown through the media or otherwise through the different démarches that have come out since the attack yesterday?
Well, I've been closely monitoring the social media, for example, and some of the most prominent journalists in Turkey, some of them have actually had to come out and make very normative statements, and they've come out and said that it's shocking to see that some countries are basically coming up with, or at least the public of those countries, Western countries, they're coming up with conspiracy theories saying that this was some sort of a conspiracy by the Turkish government, and failing to show solidarity and support. So there is this grievance you find on the Turkish social media at the moment. Contrast this with, for example, countries like Pakistan that have immediately condemned it. They've expressed their support. In the case of many Western countries, while that might have happened at the government level, at the level of the general public, that hasn't been the case. Whereas, for example, let's say in the case of countries like Pakistan, the government and the Pakistani public has come out condemning it, expressing solidarity with the Turkish public and with Turkey. So, this contrast is being talked about on the social media, on the Turkish social media.
All right. I mean, and that's very important, whether it be social media or traditional media, the voices are very important, the voices that should be in solidarity with the people of Turkey. Now, speaking of, you talked about Sweden, you talked about the rally that was taken out by PKK, waving flags and all. Do you feel after this incident that countries such as Sweden or others could have a different attitude towards organizations such as PKK, or will that remain the same? What's your take on that?
Well, remember, there's been this trilateral agreement between Turkey, Sweden, and Finland. They had this deal in June in which both countries agreed that they're going to provide counterterrorism support to Turkey. Their policy is going to be sort of converging with the Turkish concerns. And recently we had the visit of the Swedish Prime Minister. He said that his parliament is going to be bringing about the necessary legal changes to be able to, change the security policies on the ground in Sweden. The Turkish side has made it very clear. They've said that they're only going to allow Sweden and Finland to join NATO if the June agreement is actually fulfilled. So, for example, during this meeting between President Erdogan and the Swedish Prime Minister, they actually went through that memorandum, that June memorandum, point by point. And, President Erdogan has said that there are some areas where Ankara is not convinced that Sweden has done what it needs to do. Swedish side is saying that it will fulfill its promises.
But Hasan, do you feel that incidents such as these changes the dynamics of the relationship between countries? For example, I'd like to just cite an example between Turkey and its Western allies. Will it change the dynamic? Do you feel Turkey is going to be a bit more, how should I say, aggressive in its policy towards its Western allies? Do you feel the Western allies are going to understand Turkey's point of view? How is it going to roll out in the coming months? What's your opinion?
Well, I think if you look at the history of diplomatic relations between Turkey and some of the Western allies, we find that security has been one of the contentious issues, especially since July 15, 2016, where we've seen the relations taking a dip between Turkey and the European Union and between Turkey and the United States. There was the incident of American Pastor Brunson, where Turkey said that there were these individuals who are providing support to the FETÖ terrorist organization. One of the issues of contention between Turkey and America, for example, has been the extradition of Fethullah Gulen, who's the leader of FETÖ. He's residing in the United States. So we've seen that security has been a red line for Turkey. Relations have taken a dip. Then, of course, there have been, a dose of pragmatism. They've tried to compartmentalize their relations sometimes. So, for example, they might have strained relations in the domain of security, but they've tried to continue with their economic relations. Sometimes the economic relations have suffered. Sometimes the Americans, for example, have, brought about barriers on Turkish imports and so forth. So this has been happening. In the Eastern Mediterranean, we're witnessing one of the theaters of contention. So I think relations at the moment, will take a dip.
All right.
Then probably rise
come
again.
back to their normal selves. But I think it's very important. This incident is going to change a lot of dynamics, and this is what I'd like to see, what is going to happen as far as Turkey's internal politics and external politics is concerned. Thank you so very much, Hasan Abdullah, correspondent TRT World, to have joined us, to have talked to us about this heinous incident that has claimed 6 lives and has injured around 80 plus people. And of course, as per Hasan Abdullah, there have been people who have been detained. Around 21 people have been detained so far, and more, of course, results of the investigations will be unearthed by the Turkish government in the days to come, and we'll be updating you on that. Let's come to the last 2 stories very quickly. The first is on the United States of America, that has urged India to restore political rights in the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir Valley. And of course, the Assistant Secretary of State for South and Central Asian Affairs, Ronald Lu, has made it clear that there has been no change in the American policy as far as Kashmir is concerned. He said that the US has discussed human rights violations in India, especially in illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, at the high level with New Delhi. That's very important. He also said the solution to the Kashmir issue is possibly only through direct negotiations between India and Pakistan. He has also stated that it should be ensured that media could continue to do its job in Kashmir. We all know how the voices have been muted in the Indian held valley, and he also said that all this is necessary for peace, and it is hoped that peace can be ensured in the Indian held Kashmir in the coming years. Let's hope so. Let's hope that the US continues to raise its voice against these barbarities in the Indian held valley. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, World Diabetes Day is being observed today across the world, also in Pakistan. We know diabetes by its name, but also by its normal layman's name, that is sugar. This year's theme for the World Diabetes Day is access to diabetes education. 416 million people, ladies and gentlemen, have diabetes worldwide, and the number is predicted to rise to 552 million by the year 2030. We need to be vigilant. Have your sugar test done. It's a very easy test to be done. If you have it, take the necessary precautions, take insulin. If you don't, try to lead a healthy life. That is all we can say. But of course, take care of your health and of those of your loved ones. With that, we come to the end of today's newsroom. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with news story segments that pertain to us, you and Pakistan. Allah Hafiz. See you tomorrow.